High in the Montana mountains, death is coming for the wrong man. The Sinaloa Cartel, bloodiest killers in the Western Hemisphere, just marked Michael Torres for elimination. They see a graying rancher, alone on 1,000 acres. Easy prey. But they're walking into a trap 20 years in the making. For 2 decades, Torres hunted cartel leaders across the globe as the DEA's deadliest operative. They called him El Cazador, the Hunter. He's personally dismantled 7 cartels, sent 33 kingpins to prison, and can kill a man at 800 yards without breaking a sweat. Now, as cartel assassins approach his ranch, they're about to learn why he was the most feared agent in DEA history. 1 ranch, 1 man, and enough tactical experience to turn their own savage methods against them. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Michael Torres walked his fence line at dawn, boots crunching frost-covered grass, his breath misted in the cold Montana air as his eyes continuously scanned the tree line, an old habit that had kept him alive through decades of undercover work. His German shepherd Shadow trotted beside him, equally alert. The dog had been trained by the same experts who prepared K9 units for federal agencies, though neighbors just thought Michael had a knack with animals. The rising sun painted the Bitterroot Mountains in shades of gold and crimson, illuminating the 1,000 acres of Thunder Valley Ranch. To anyone passing by, it looked like any other Montana cattle operation. Well-maintained fences, healthy herds, and a weathered but solid ranch house. Nobody would notice how the security cameras were military grade, or that the barn's reinforced walls could stop a .50 caliber round. "Found something, boy?" Michael asked as Shadow's ears perked up. The dog had caught a scent near the north fence. Kneeling down, Michael examined fresh tire tracks in the mud, too deep for normal trucks, probably heavy SUVs. His hand instinctively brushed the compact Glock 19 hidden under his ranch jacket. "Morning, boss!" The cheerful call came from Pete Martinez, his head ranch hand. The young man rode up on his quarter horse, looking every bit the authentic cowboy. Only Michael knew that Pete was ex-Army Rangers, carefully chosen for both his livestock skills and combat experience. "Herd's looking good, but Dave spotted some broken fence up by Carpenter Creek." Michael nodded, studying Pete's relaxed posture. The subtle hand signal the younger man gave told him they had visitors, unknown vehicles on the county road. "Take Shadow with you to check it," Michael replied, using their predetermined code. "I'll handle the delivery truck that's coming." No delivery was scheduled. Pete understood immediately. Get to the observation post and prepare for trouble. The ranch's morning routine continued with practiced precision. Sarah Chen, his veterinarian, arrived right on schedule. The petite Asian woman had a way with horses that made her popular with every ranch in 3 counties. None of them knew she'd spent 15 years as a DEA forensics specialist before retiring to Montana. "How's that mare doing?" Michael asked as Sarah parked her truck. "Better," she replied, but her eyes conveyed a different message. She'd spotted the same tire tracks. "Might need to check the whole herd, though, just to be safe." Michael understood. She'd run surveillance on her drive in, noted multiple potential hostiles. The cartel was definitely moving pieces into place. Inside the ranch house, Michael's kitchen table looked like any rancher's command center. Cattle records, equipment maintenance logs, weather reports. Hidden beneath them were satellite imagery of cartel movements, intelligence reports from DEA contacts, and detailed maps marking potential ambush points across his property. His sat phone buzzed. A text from Maria Ramirez, his former DEA partner, now stationed in the FBI's Helena office. "Company coming, same boys from Sinaloa, watch your 6. Michael moved to his gun safe, officially registered as a standard rancher's arsenal. Hunting rifles, shotguns, the basic tools of rural life. His fingerprint opened a hidden compartment, revealing a customized M4 carbine, specialized ammunition, and enough tactical gear to outfit a small strike team. The sound of vehicles on the main road drew his attention. Through his kitchen window, he watched 3 black SUVs roll past his gate, moving slowly. Reconnaissance, marking their target. Professional, but not subtle enough. "Getting sloppy, boys," he muttered, remembering how he'd taught DEA surveillance. Teams to be more discreet. The cartel was confident, too confident. They thought they were hunting an aging rancher. They hadn't realized they were being stalked by someone who'd spent 20 years learning their every move. His phone buzzed again. Pete's text was brief. 4 armed, military hardware, Colombian accents, mercenaries then, not regular cartel soldiers. Michael smiled grimly. They were taking him seriously enough to send professionals, but not seriously enough to recognize who they were really dealing with. Sarah's voice crackled over their secure radio. 2 more vehicles approaching from the east. Gun cases visible. Michael checked his watch. In 30 minutes, the local school bus would drive past his ranch. He couldn't risk a confrontation with children potentially in the crossfire. The cartel wouldn't care about collateral damage. But he'd spent his career protecting innocents from their brutality. He opened his laptop, accessing the ranch's surveillance system. 8 cameras covered every approach, their feeds encrypted and channeled through multiple servers to hide their military origins. The SUVs had stopped 2 miles down the road. Men in tactical gear were establishing observation posts. Michael's fingers moved across the keyboard, sending predetermined signals to his team. Pete would move the herd to the south pasture, clearing the likely combat zone. Sarah would ensure the school bus took an alternate route. Years of planning, preparing for exactly this scenario, smoothly shifting into action. The cartel thought they were setting up an ambush. They didn't realize they were walking into one that had been years in the making. Every fence post, every cattle guard, every seemingly random piece of farm equipment had been positioned to create interlocking fields of fire and defensive positions. Michael Torres hadn't spent the last 5 years just raising cattle. He'd been building a trap, using everything he'd learned about cartel tactics to create their perfect nightmare. Now, as the morning sun climbed higher over Thunder Valley Ranch, that trap was about to be sprung. Sheriff Tom Bradley's truck kicked up dust as it approached Thunder Valley Ranch. Michael watched his old friend's arrival through his scope, another habit that hadn't died. 20 years of tracking cartel movements through rifle sights had left their mark. "You've got company," Tom called out as he stepped from his vehicle. The sheriff's casual tone belied his tension. Michael could see it in the way his hand rested near his sidearm. "Saw some interesting vehicles on my patrol." "Already noted," Michael replied, leading them inside. The sheriff had been his first confidence when he'd moved to Thunder Valley. As former DEA himself, Tom understood what it meant to have a high-level operative settling in his jurisdiction. Inside, Michael poured coffee while Tom spread photos across the kitchen table. 6 vehicles total. Colombian mercenaries, according to my sources. They're being paid by the Sinaloa Cartel. But something's off about this. Michael studied the surveillance photos. They're too obvious. Cartel ops don't normally telegraph their moves like this. He paused, memories surfacing of similar patterns. Unless they want you to see them, Tom finished. Question is, why? Michael moved to his office, unlocking a hidden safe behind a family photo. Inside lay a thick file. His last case with the DEA, the one that still haunted him. "Remember the Sonora operation, 2018? Tom's face darkened. "The one where we lost Maria's partner, yeah." Michael spread documents across his desk. Cartels showed themselves deliberately then too. Made us focus on their obvious moves while they hit us from an unexpected direction. The operation had been a disaster. 3 DEA agents dead, a major cartel leader escaped, and Maria's partner murdered in what looked like a random carjacking. but was actually a carefully planned execution. It had been Michael's last field operation before retiring. Diego Ramirez, Michael said, pulling out a photograph. Brother of the cartel leader we were hunting. He was the one who planned that operation. Word is, he's running their expansion into Montana now. Tom studied the photo of a well-dressed man with cold eyes. You think this is personal? With the cartels, it's always personal. Michael moved to his window, scanning the distant tree line. Diego's brother died in prison last year. Federal supermax, supposedly a heart attack. Supposedly? Michael's smile was grim. Let's just say certain information found its way to other inmates about his involvement in killing federal agents. Tom whistled softly. You arranged that? I arranged for the truth to be known. What happened after that was prison justice. Michael checked his watch. Diego blamed me for his brother's death. This show of force, it's not just about taking my ranch. He wants me to know he's coming. The sheriff's radio crackled, reports of more suspicious vehicles in the county. Michael noticed how they were all keeping clear of major roads, using back trails he himself had mapped years ago when planning the ranch's defenses. They're setting up a perimeter, Michael observed. Standard cartel tactic when they're planning something big. Diego's trying to replicate what we did to his operation in Sonora, cut off all escape routes before moving in for the kill. Except you're not planning to escape, Tom said, noting the calm calculation in his friend's expression. This ranch has been my fallback position for 5 years. Every fence, every building, every line of sight has been prepared. Michael paused, remembering long nights spent studying cartel tactics, developing countermeasures. Diego thinks he's hunting the man who destroyed his family. He doesn't realize he's walking into a trap 20 years in the making. Tom moved to leave, then hesitated. Maria should know about this. If Diego's involved, already contacted. Her. FBI's keeping their distance for now. We need the cartel to commit fully to this play before federal agencies show their hand. The sheriff nodded, understanding the strategy. Like Sonora, but in reverse. Instead of us walking into their trap, they're walking into ours. Michael's hand brushed the rifle he'd used in countless operations. Diego wants to make this personal. Fine. Let's show him what happens when you hunt a hunter. After Tom left, Michael returned to his surveillance. The cartel's movements were precise, professional. They were establishing observation posts, marking approaches, following their standard protocol for a major operation. Just as he'd expected them to. His phone buzzed. Another text from Maria. Diego confirmed. He's running this personally. Be careful, Mike. He's not the same man we hunted 5 years ago. Michael's reply was brief. Neither am I. In his barn, hidden beneath hay bales and farm equipment, lay enough firepower to hold off a small army. Every weapon had been chosen specifically to counter cartel tactics he'd spent decades studying. Every ammunition cache positioned to support. A fighting retreat to prepared positions. They thought he was alone, a retired agent turned rancher, isolated and vulnerable. They hadn't realized that Thunder Valley Ranch was more than just his retirement home. It was the ultimate trap. Designed by someone who knew their playbook by heart, the sun climbed higher, and Michael Torres, the man they once called El Cazador, prepared to show the cartel why that name had made them tremble for 20 years. Maria Ramirez killed her headlights 2 miles from Thunder Valley Ranch, her black FBI-issue SUV blending with the Montana night. She'd learned stealth from the best, the man she was now racing to warn. Her satellite phone buzzed with an encrypted message, cartel movements across 3 states, all converging on this quiet valley. Michael was waiting at his kitchen door, shadow alert beside him. You shouldn't have come, he said, but the concern in his voice was for her safety, not his operational security. Diego's mobilizing everything, Mike. Maria followed him inside, spreading intelligence photos across his table. Not just the Colombians. He's called in markers from 3 other cartels. Whatever he's planning, it's big. Michael studied the photos, his expression unchanging. But Maria knew him too well, saw the slight tension in his jaw, the way his fingers drummed once on the table. How many? At least 50 men, maybe more. Heavy weapons, professional mercenaries, cartel hit teams. She paused, pulling out one last photo. And he's brought in El Coyote. That got a reaction. El Coyote, the cartel's master tracker and assassin. The man who'd found and killed Maria's partner 5 years ago, making it look like a random carjacking. The man who'd vanished before Michael could reach him. Diego's not just trying to take the ranch, Maria continued. He's rebuilding his brother's entire operation. Montana, Idaho, Wyoming. He's planning to control all the distribution routes through the northern states. Your ranch is just the first target, a message to anyone who might resist. Michael moved to his window, scanning the darkness with practiced eyes. How long? 2 days, maybe 3. FBI's tracking their movements, but we can't move yet. Not without compromising ongoing operations. You mean not without revealing how much the Bureau really knows about their networks? There was no accusation. In Michael's voice, just understanding. He'd played this game too long to expect clean solutions. Maria joined him at the window. I've got a team standing by in Helena, unofficial, off the books. When you give the word, no. Michael's voice was firm. Diego's expecting that. He remembers how we operated, knows I'd have backup plans, support networks. He's counting on it. Mike, you can't handle this alone, not against these numbers. His smile was slight but confident. Who said I'm alone? He led her to his barn, revealing what lay beneath the rural facade. Maria whistled softly at the arsenal. The communications gear, the tactical equipment positioned with precise purpose. Pete's ex-Rangers, Michael explained. Sarah was DEA forensics. Even Tom's got history with the agency. I've spent 5 years building a team that looks like normal ranch hands, and the ranch itself, every inch designed for defense, sight lines, fallback positions, pre-sighted firing zones. Diego thinks he's planning a complex operation. He doesn't realize he's walking into one that's been 5 years in the making. Maria studied her old partner. She'd seen this side of him before, the tactician who could turn an enemy's strength into a fatal weakness. What's your play? Diego. Wants to make this personal? Fine. He'll focus on me, commit everything to taking down El Cazador. Meanwhile, his entire operation will be exposed. Maria caught on quickly. Every contact, every route, every corrupt official he's bought, all in one place. The ranch isn't the target, Michael confirmed. It's the bait. Diego's so focused on revenge he doesn't realize he's about to lose everything, just like his brother did. Maria's phone buzzed again. More cartel movements. They were being careful, professional, following all the protocols she and Michael had once used against them. They're expecting a retired agent, she said. A dangerous one, but still just one man. Let them. Michael checked his weapons with practiced efficiency. Diego forgot the first rule I taught you about hunting cartels. Never assume you know all your target's resources. Exactly. He handed her a secure radio, one of several he'd prepared. Years ago. Stay close, but not too close. When this starts, I'll make sure the FBI's response is delayed just enough. She gripped his arm briefly. Watch your back, Mike. Diego's not just his brother's revenge anymore. He's trying to build something bigger. All the better. Michael's eyes were cold in the barn's dim light. More to tear down when we're done. After Maria left, Michael returned. To his surveillance, the cartel's forces were moving with practiced precision, establishing a perimeter that would have trapped a normal target. But Thunder Valley Ranch was far from normal, and its owner was done playing defense. 20 years of hunting cartels had taught Michael Torres patience. Now, as his enemies gathered in the darkness, that patience was about to pay off. Diego wanted to rebuild his brother's empire. Fine, Michael would give him a lesson in how empires fall. The black Mercedes SUVs looked ridiculously out of place on the dirt road leading to Thunder Valley Ranch. Michael counted 3 vehicles, watching through his rifle scope as they approached his gate. Professional drivers, maintaining perfect spacing, cartel executives, not soldiers. "Pete, get everyone inside the barn," he murmured into his radio. "Sarah, start your video feed." Shadow sat silently beside him as 5 men emerged from the vehicles. Their suits were expensive, their shoes imported leather, but Michael noticed the subtle bulges of shoulder holsters, the way they unconsciously checked sightlines. 2 stayed with the vehicles, hands conspicuously visible. Not amateurs. The leader was instantly recognizable from intelligence photos. Diego Ramirez himself, now wearing a $1,000 suit instead of cartel tactical gear. His face had changed since Michael last saw him across a firefight in Sonora. Harder, colder, carved by 5 years of rebuilding his family's empire. Michael stepped onto his porch, projecting the image of a cautious but unafraid rancher. His Glock remained hidden under his work jacket, while his rifle rested just inside the door. "Mr. Torres," Diego called out, his accent refined, educated. "Beautiful property you have here." He gestured at the mountains rising behind the ranch. "Very strategic location." "Private property?" Michael replied evenly, noting how Diego's men were subtly spreading out, establishing firing positions. "Not interested in visitors." "Ah, but we're not visitors." Diego's smile never reached his eyes. "We represent certain business interests. Your land, it has particular value to our organization." Michael leaned against his porch post, the picture of relaxation while his mind catalogued threats and firing. "Ingalls? Not for sale. Everything's for sale, Mr. Torres." Diego stepped closer, his manner shifting subtly. "Or should I say, Agent Torres? El Cazador himself, living like a simple rancher. Life is full of surprises, no?" Michael kept his expression neutral, but inside his pulse quickened. Diego was showing his hand early, a sign of confidence or something else. "My organization is prepared to be generous," Diego continued. $5 million, more than fair for a cattle ranch in the middle of nowhere. He spread his hands. "You can retire somewhere warm. Perhaps Mexico, though I hear the cartels make things dangerous there." The threat was clear. Michael straightened, slowly, letting just a hint of his true nature show. "Interesting offer. Answers still no." Diego's smile vanished. "You misunderstand, Agent Torres. This isn't a negotiation. You took my brother from me. Justice demands balance." His voice hardened. "The only question is whether you leave this valley alive or in a body bag." "Still bitter about Sonora, Diego?" Michael's words struck home. He saw the flash of rage in the cartel leader's eyes. "Your brother made his choices, just like you're making yours." "Choices?" Diego laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Let me tell you about choices, Cazador. In 1 hour, certain financial transactions will occur. Your ranch's mortgage will be called in. Your accounts will be frozen. Your supplies will stop delivering. In 2 hours, your ranch hands will receive offers they can't refuse to work elsewhere. By tonight, you'll be alone." He stepped closer, his mask of civility cracking. "In 1 week, this valley will belong to my organization. Your choice is simply whether you walk away now, or we destroy everything you've built before killing you anyway." Michael's hand didn't move toward his weapon, but his voice carried 2 decades of authority. "You should leave now, Diego. While you can, still the same arrogant federal agent." Diego turned to go, then paused. 1 hour, Cazador. After that, everything changes." He smiled again, cold and precise. "Oh, and do give my regards to Agent Ramirez." Such a tragedy about her partner in Sonora. Random carjacking, wasn't it? Michael maintained his calm facade until the SUVs disappeared down his drive. Then he moved with practiced efficiency, activating pre-planned defensive protocols. Pete, full lockdown. Sarah, get that footage to Maria. Everyone else, this is not a drill. His phone buzzed. Maria had already received Sarah's video. Her message was brief. Diego's gone rogue. Cartel leadership didn't sanction this. He's using their resources for a personal vendetta. Michael smiled grimly. Diego was letting emotion override tactics. Exactly what he'd been counting on. The cartel leader thought he was moving his pieces into position, but he'd just walked onto a chessboard where every square was a potential trap. The game was starting. And Michael Torres hadn't spent 20 years hunting cartels without learning how to turn their own methods against them. Exactly 1 hour after Diego's departure, Michael's satellite phone lit up with alerts. His bank accounts were being systematically frozen. The ranch's loans were suddenly called in. Supply companies sent automated cancellation notices. Diego's financial assault was precise, professional, and completely expected. Right on schedule, Michael muttered, activating his backup accounts, established years ago under layers of shells and trusts that not even the cartels could trace. While Diego's cyber team celebrated their successful attack, they had no idea they were following a trail Michael had deliberately left exposed. The real money, like the real weapons, was invisible. Shadow's low growl alerted him moments before. His perimeter sensors triggered. 4 vehicles approaching fast from the North Service Road, not the professional cartel convoy this time. Local muscle, hired thugs, sent to deliver a message. "Pete, you in position?" Michael asked through his radio. "Affirmative. Got clear sight lines on the approach. Sarah's got the cameras rolling." Michael moved to his predetermined spot behind the barn, rifle ready. This would be the first test, not just of their defenses, but of Diego's tactics. The cartel leader was playing it by the book, starting with intimidation before escalating to professional hit teams. The vehicles, battered pickup trucks carrying too many armed men, roared onto his property. 12 thugs total, carrying a mix of hunting rifles and cheap pistols. They spread out with more enthusiasm than skill, whooping and firing shots into the air. "Come on out, old man." Their leader, a thick-necked bruiser with a shotgun, bellowed. "Time to teach you about respect." Michael's voice carried clearly across the yard. "You've got 30 seconds to leave my property." More shots answered him, peppering the barn with buckshot. 25 seconds, Michael continued calmly. "Burn it down," the leader ordered. 2 men rushed forward with gas cans. "Pete, take the gas cans. No kill shots." 2 precise reports from Pete's rifle. Both men dropped, clutching shattered kneecaps. The others froze, suddenly realizing this wasn't going to be a simple intimidation job. 10 seconds. The leader raised his shotgun toward Michael's voice. "Kill this son of a—" Michael's first shot took the shotgun out of the man's hands. His second shot put a round through his thigh, dropping him instantly. The remaining thugs opened fire wildly, shooting at shadows. "Time's up." What followed wasn't really a fight. It was a demonstration. 20 years of DEA operations had taught Michael exactly how to dismantle amateur gunmen. 5 more precision shots, 5 more non-lethal wounds. The rest threw down their weapons, scrambling back to their trucks. "Sarah, send the footage to the usual contacts," Michael ordered, stepping into view. The remaining thugs froze as they recognized him, not as a rancher, but as something far more dangerous. "Tell Diego this was sloppy," he called out to the retreating men. "Tell him I expected better from the man who planned the Sonora operation." As the trucks peeled out, spraying gravel, Michael's phone buzzed. Maria's message was urgent. "Major, cartel movements detected. Diego's calling in every favor he has. This is just the beginning." Michael surveyed his property, noting how perfectly his team had executed their roles. Pete's shooting had been precise, Sarah's surveillance comprehensive, everything recorded, documented and distributed to key law enforcement contacts. When the FBI finally moved, they'd have everything they needed. But first, they had to let Diego commit fully to his vendetta. The cartel leader had just learned his first lesson, that Michael Torres was far from helpless. Now, pride and rage would drive him to escalate, to commit more resources, to expose more of his operation. All units, reset to defensive positions. Michael ordered. Next wave won't be amateurs. He checked his watch. Based on cartel response patterns he'd studied for decades, Diego would wait at least 12 hours before sending professionals. Time enough to prepare the next phase of his trap. Shadow padded up beside him as he watched the sun set behind the mountains. The dog's ears were alert, sensing his master's tension. "It's starting, boy," Michael said quietly. "Everything we've planned for, everything we've built here." He smiled grimly. "Let's show them why they used to call me El Cazador." Night fell over Thunder Valley Ranch as Michael activated protocols he'd hoped never to use. In his command center, hidden beneath the barn's reinforced concrete floor, 3 satellite phones lay on the desk. Each represented a different network. He'd built during his DEA years, contacts, assets and resources unknown, even to his former agency. Sierra Network, Authenticate Thunder 7 Delta, he spoke into the first phone. A burst of encrypted data confirmed reception. Within hours, surveillance teams he'd positioned years ago would be monitoring every major cartel staging point in 3 states. The second call went to a former CIA operative in Mexico City. "Marcus, remember that favor you owe me from Bogota? Time to pay up. Need everything you have on Diego Ramirez's current operation." The third call was different, a direct line to a secure server that only 4 people knew existed. "Ghost protocol activated. All sleeper assets go live." Pete entered the command center, his Rangers training evident in his precise movements. "Perimeter sensors are hot. Sarah's got thermal imaging coverage on all approaches, but we've got a problem." Michael studied the tactical display, showing heat signatures moving through the surrounding hills. "They're positioning snipers. Not just any snipers." Pete laid out photos taken through their long-range cameras. "That's El Coyote's team, best cartel shooters in the business." "Good." Michael's smile was predatory. "Let them get comfortable. Think they've got us surrounded." "Sir?" Pete looked confused. Michael moved to a large topographical map of the valley. Red dots marked where the cartel snipers were setting up. "What do you notice about their positions?" Pete studied the map, his military training kicking in. They're all in obvious spots. Best sight lines, proper elevation." His eyes widened. "Too obvious." "Exactly." Michael pointed to seemingly random marks on the map. 5 years ago, when I bought this ranch, I spent 3 months identifying every prime sniper position in this valley. Then I prepared countermeasures. For each one, he activated another screen, showing camera feeds from concealed positions. Every spot they're taking is pre-sighted, pre-ranged, and covered by our own shooters. They think they're setting up a kill zone. Actually, they're walking into one. His satellite phone buzzed. Maria's urgent update. Diego's moved his command, sent her to the old logging camp. He's got at least 30 professional gunmen, plus El Coyote's team. They're planning something big for Dawn. Of course they are, Michael muttered. Dawn attacks were standard cartel doctrine when they had superior numbers. He'd helped write that doctrine during his years infiltrating their operations. Sarah's voice crackled over the radio. "Multiple vehicles moving on county roads. They're blocking potential escape routes." "Let them." Michael activated another system, bringing up a network of trail cameras hidden throughout the valley. "They're following the containment protocol I taught DEA teams. Isolate, then eliminate." He checked his watch. "Time to show them why that's a mistake." "Sir?" Pete was checking his weapon, a custom rifle built for precision work. "What's our play?" "Diego thinks he's got us trapped, but this valley isn't our prison, it's our killing ground. Every route they're blocking leads to prepared positions. Every sniper nest they're occupying is already targeted. They're not trapping us." "We're trapping them," Pete finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. Michael nodded, moving to a gun, safe, hidden behind steel panels. Inside lay weapons and equipment that would make Special Forces units envious. "Get the team ready. When they come at dawn, they'll expect to find a desperate old man making his last stand. Instead, they'll learn why cartels still tell stories about El Cazador." Michael checked his custom rifle, each movement precise and practiced. Diego forgot the first rule of hunting. When stalking dangerous prey, make damn sure it's not hunting you back. Around the valley, hidden assets were already moving into position. Motion sensors tracked cartel movements, feeding data to their tactical displays. Every approach was monitored, every position covered. Michael had spent 5 years and millions of dollars preparing this battlefield. In the command center's harsh light, he looked nothing like a simple rancher. This was El Cazador, the hunter who'd terrorized cartels across 2 continents, the man who'd spent 20 years learning their methods, their tactics, their weaknesses. "Dawns in 6 hours," he told his team. "Let's remind them why they used to fear the dark." The barn's hidden elevator descended silently, carrying Michael and Pete 30 feet underground. Few people knew that Thunder Valley Ranch's real value lay beneath its pastoral surface, a state-of-the-art command and control center that would make most military installations envious. "Sweet Jesus," Pete whispered as the lights activated automatically. 3 separate armories lined the walls, each dedicated to specific tactical scenarios. Advanced communications gear filled one corner, monitoring every frequency used by law enforcement and cartels alike. 20 years of preparation, Michael explained, moving to a central planning table. Every bonus, every seized asset I could legally keep, every resource I could salvage, all invested in this facility. The table illuminated, displaying a real-time 3D map of the valley. Red dots showed cartel positions, blue markers indicated their own assets. Michael gestured, and the display zoomed in on the approaching forces. "They're moving exactly as predicted," he noted, pointing to specific formations. "Diego's following the advanced cartel tactical manual. Problem is, I wrote half of those protocols during my undercover years." Sarah's voice came through their secure comms. Multiple thermal signatures approaching the North Ridge, heavy weapons, probably 50 caliber emplacements. Right on schedule. Michael activated another system, revealing hidden defensive positions. Throughout his property, every fence post is numbered and ranged. Every cattle guard doubles as an anti-vehicle barrier. Even the irrigation system can be weaponized. Pete studied the defenses with professional appreciation. "You've turned the entire ranch into one giant kill zone." Not just the ranch. Michael brought up additional overlays, showing prepared positions throughout the valley. 5 years of planning, coordinating with friendly landowners, positioning assets. "Diego thinks he's boxing us in. He doesn't realize the whole valley is the box." A proximity alarm flashed. More cartel forces arriving at their staging areas. Michael switched to thermal imaging, counting vehicles and personnel. 47 combatants now, heavy weapons teams, professional gunmen, cartel special forces. "Can we handle those numbers?" Pete asked, checking his ammunition loadout. Michael moved to the first armory, entering a complex security code. The wall slid aside, revealing racks of specialized weapons. These aren't normal cartel soldiers. They're mercenaries. Professionals. They fight for money. He selected a custom-modified M4A1, checking its specialized optics. That means they can be broken. And El Coyote's team? They're different. True believers. Loyal to the cartel, not the money. Michael's expression hardened. They'll fight to the death, so we adapt accordingly. He opened another secure room, this one filled with surveillance equipment and electronic warfare gear. Diego's forces are coordinating through encrypted communications. State-of-the-art stuff, supposedly unbreakable. Supposedly? Michael smiled grimly. I helped design their encryption protocols during a deep cover operation in 2019, built in a back door nobody knows about. We can hear everything they're saying. They're deaf to us. His satellite phone buzzed. Maria again. FBI's tracking massive cartel resource movements. Diego's stripped 3 major operations to support this attack. He's all in. Good, Michael replied. The deeper he commits, the more we can take down when this ends. He turned to Pete. Time to brief the full team. Minutes later, Sarah and the rest of Michael's hand-picked crew gathered in the command center. Each had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their history with cartel operations. Each had personal reasons to see Diego's organization destroyed. Dawn attack confirmed, Michael began, bringing up tactical displays. They'll come in 3 waves. First wave hits our obvious defenses, makes us commit resources. Second wave exploits what they think are weak points. Third wave, led by El Coyote personally, goes for the kill. He highlighted specific approaches and positions. Every attack route they're planning leads to prepared kill zones. Every fallback position they've identified is covered by pre-sighted weapons. When they trigger our first line of defenses, they'll think they're winning. Sarah studied the tactical display. They'll adapt when they realize it's a trap. By then, it'll be too late. Michael activated one final system, revealing the true scope of his preparations. Hidden caches, reinforced positions, emergency resources, enough to sustain a prolonged siege. Diego thinks he's hunting El Cazador. Time to remind him why cartels gave me that name. The team dispersed to their positions, each carrying specialized weapons and equipment chosen for specific roles. Michael remained in the command center briefly, sending one final message to Maria. Everything's proceeding as planned. When this is over, we'll have enough evidence to take down Diego's entire network. Her reply was immediate. Be careful, Mike. El Coyote's reputation isn't just for show. He enjoys the work too much. Michael checked his weapons one final time before heading up to the surface. Dawn was approaching, and with it, the beginning of a battle he'd spent 20 years preparing to fight. Diego was about to learn the difference between hunting a retired agent and stalking a predator in its own territory. First light hadn't yet touched the mountain peaks when El Coyote's advance team triggered Michael's outer perimeter sensors. Their movement was professional, precise, staying low, using terrain for cover, checking for tripwires and basic surveillance equipment. 4-man team, northeast approach, Sarah reported from her monitoring station. They're good, avoiding all the obvious detection zones. Of course they are, Michael replied calmly. They're following protocol for approaching a defended position. Problem is, he activated a secondary sensor grid hidden beneath the obvious one. They don't know about our real surveillance network. Through thermal imaging, he watched El Coyote's men methodically probe his defenses. They disabled 2 visible cameras, marked sniper positions, and identified apparent weak points in his perimeter, exactly as he'd planned. They're marking the barn as a primary target, Pete observed from his concealed position. Think they spotted the command center entrance? They think they did. Michael switched to another camera feed. The visible entrance is a decoy. Standard cartel tactic. Hit the command and control center first. Disrupt defensive coordination. Sarah's voice crackled over their secure channel. Main force is moving. 3 vehicles approaching from the south. Heavy weapons visible. Right on schedule. Michael checked his watch. Diego's following the playbook perfectly. Pete, initiate response pattern alpha. The first sign that this wouldn't be a normal assault came when El Coyote's advance team tried to signal their main force. Their encrypted radios produced only static, all frequencies jammed by equipment Michael had installed years ago. They're shifting to backup communications, Sarah reported. Hand signals and pre-arranged. She paused. Sir, thermals showing multiple teams moving into assault positions, at least 20 men. Let them come, Michael replied, moving to his predetermined position. Everything's arranged exactly as we planned. The cartel's first attack came as dawn broke over the mountains. 2 vehicles roared toward the main gate, while a third provided covering fire. Standard cartel protocol for breaching a defended position overwhelmed the obvious defenses while special teams hit from unexpected angles. Except Michael had prepared for exactly this approach. The lead vehicle hit a concealed barrier, hidden beneath an innocent-looking cattle guard. The second vehicle swerved to avoid it, exactly as planned, and triggered Michael's first real surprise. Compressed air launchers, buried beneath the access road, deployed a web of reinforced netting. The vehicle flipped spectacularly, its momentum working against it. The third vehicle slammed to a stop, its heavy weapons team suddenly exposed. "Now!" Michael ordered. Pete's rifle cracked from his hidden position. The heavy weapons team went down hard, not dead, but thoroughly incapacitated by precision shots to arms and legs. Michael had been clear. No fatalities unless absolutely necessary. They needed prisoners for the eventual federal case. "Sir!" Sarah's urgent call cut through the comms. El Coyote's team is using the distraction to approach from the east. They're good. Almost missed them on thermal. Almost isn't good enough, Michael replied calmly. Activate secondary defenses, east sector. Hidden speakers suddenly blasted recorded gunfire and explosions from multiple positions, creating chaos and confusion. El Coyote's team found themselves caught in the open, unable to distinguish real threats from fake ones. That's when Michael revealed his true capability. His first shot disabled El Coyote's second-in-command, a precise round that shattered the man's rifle without killing him. His second shot did the same to their communications specialist. 3 more shots. 3 more disabled weapons. Jesus, Pete whispered, watching through his scope. You're not even trying to hit them. Don't need to. Michael was already moving to a new position. El Coyote knows those shots could have been kill shots. He's realizing this isn't a normal siege. He was right. The cartel forces were already adapting, pulling back to covered positions. Through their compromised communications, Michael heard El Coyote himself calling for a tactical retreat. They're regrouping, Sarah confirmed. Multiple teams falling back to wait. Her voice sharpened. New vehicles approaching from the county road. Looks like their reserve force. Michael smiled grimly. Right on schedule. Diego's watching through their tactical feeds. His ego won't let him accept this first defeat. He'll commit more resources, dig himself deeper. The morning sun now illuminated the battlefield fully, revealing the precision of Michael's trap. Every retreating cartel team found themselves channeled into pre-sighted zones, forced to waste ammunition on phantom threats while exposing themselves to real ones. "Sir," Pete called out, "we've got movement at their command post. Looks like Diego himself is taking direct control." Perfect. Michael checked his ammunition. He's emotional now, angry. He'll abandon the careful tactical approach, try to overwhelm us with numbers and firepower. He switched channels. "Maria, are you getting all this?" "Every second," she replied. "FBI tactical teams are on standby, but holding position as requested. Diego's stripped 3 major operations for this attack. When he falls, his entire network falls." Michael watched as more cartel vehicles approached his position. Diego was committing everything now, determined to overcome this unexpected resistance through sheer force. "All units, fall back to secondary positions," he ordered. "Let them think they're pushing us hard. Let them think they're winning." He smiled coldly. Then we'll show them what a real trap looks like. The real battle was just beginning, but already Michael had achieved his first objective. Diego was off balance, reacting emotionally rather than tactically. The cartel leader thought he was still hunting El Cazador. He hadn't realized that every move, every decision, every reaction was being choreographed by a man who'd spent 20 years learning how to destroy organizations exactly like his. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Thunder Valley Ranch as Michael studied drone footage of the cartel's new arrivals. 3 black helicopters had landed at an abandoned airstrip 20 miles away, disgorging their cargo of men and equipment. These weren't ordinary cartel soldiers. Their movements were too precise, their gear too specialized. Colombian mercenaries, he told his team gathered in the command center, ex-special forces, probably from the same unit that helped Diego escape in Sonora. He zoomed in on their leader, a scarred man whose bearing screamed military training. That's Xavier Mendez, used to run Colombia's elite anti-cartel unit before switching sides. How many? Pete asked, checking his ammunition supplies. 24 operators plus support staff, better equipped than most military units. Michael switched feeds, showing their weapons loadout. Night vision, thermal imaging, tactical communications that aren't using cartel frequencies. Sarah's voice came through the comms. They're setting up differently too. Professional recon, proper perimeter security. These aren't thugs with guns. No, Michael agreed. They're legitimate threats. Which is exactly what we wanted. He activated the tactical display, showing how the mercenaries were establishing their positions. Diego's frustrated. He's spending serious money now, bringing in professionals who know how to handle complex operations. Sir? Pete looked concerned. We're outnumbered at least 4-1, and these aren't amateurs we can trick easily. Michael's smile was cold. They're professionals, yes, but they're fighting for money. We're fighting for justice. He moved to a secure locker, entering a complex code. Besides, being professionals means they'll follow professional protocols. Makes them predictable. The locker opened, revealing specialized equipment that would make military contractors drool. 20 years hunting cartels taught me every tactic, every procedure these men rely on. More importantly, he pulled out a set of advanced communication interceptors. I know their weaknesses. Multiple vehicles approaching from the north. Sarah reported, Thermal shows heavy weapons, professional deployment patterns. They're starting their advance. Michael activated another screen showing real-time satellite imagery. The mercenaries were moving in textbook formation, covering every approach, checking for ambush points. Their discipline was impressive. They'll probe our defenses first, he explained. Professional reconnaissance, looking for weak points. Then they'll establish fire superiority with their heavy weapons before sending in assault teams. He checked his watch. They'll wait for dusk, better visibility with their night vision equipment. How do we counter? Pete asked. We don't. We let them execute their plan perfectly. Michael brought up another tactical display, this one showing defensive positions they'd prepared years ago. Every move they make following professional protocol will lead them exactly where we want them. His satellite phone buzzed. Maria's. Update, FBI's tracking multiple cartel money transfers. Diego's spending millions on this operation. Bureau wants to move in. Not yet, Michael replied. Let him commit everything. When this is finished, we're taking down his entire network. The first probing attacks came exactly as he'd predicted. Mercenary reconnaissance teams moved with practiced precision, expertly identifying and marking defensive positions. They found cameras, sensors, and defensive emplacements, all carefully placed to be discovered. They're good, Sarah commented, watching through their real surveillance network. Finding most of our obvious defenses. Of course they are. Michael activated another system, one that didn't appear on any official documentation. That's why we spent 5 years building 2 separate defensive networks. They're finding all the decoys, missing all the real threats. A burst of encrypted communication caught their attention. The mercenaries coordinating their next move. Michael's systems decoded it instantly. Another advantage of his years infiltrating cartel operations. They're setting up their heavy weapons, he translated, planning to suppress our positions while their assault teams wait. He focused on new movement at the mercenary command post. Well, this is interesting. The thermal imaging showed a familiar figure joining the mercenary leader, El Coyote himself, apparently coordinating with the professionals. This was unusual. Cartel assassins rarely work directly with mercenaries. Diego's getting desperate, Michael observed, mixing his assets, violating normal operational security. Good. He checked his weapons, each movement precise and practiced. Desperation makes people sloppy. "Sir," Pete called out, "they're deploying something new, looks like—" He paused, adjusting his optics. "Anti-personnel mines. They're trying to restrict our movement options." Michael nodded, unsurprised. Standard procedure when assaulting. A defended position. Box the enemy in. Eliminate their escape routes. He activated another hidden system. Fortunately, we planned for this too. The team watched as their thermal imaging revealed the full scope of the mercenary deployment. Professional, methodical, and completely unaware, they were walking into a trap 5 years in the making. "All units," Michael commanded, "fall back to secondary positions. Let them think they're forcing us to concentrate our defenses." His voice carried the weight of decades of experience. Time to show these professionals what happens when they hunt someone who wrote their playbook. The sun was setting behind the mountains, casting long shadows across Thunder Valley Ranch. In the gathering darkness, two forces prepared for battle. One confident in their superior numbers and professional training, the other knowing that every shadow, every corner, every inch of ground had been prepared for exactly this moment. The real fight was about to begin, and Michael Torres was about to remind everyone why cartels still whispered stories about El Cazador. Darkness fell over Thunder Valley Ranch as Michael activated systems that transformed his peaceful cattle operation into a military-grade defensive position. Hidden shutters slid silently over windows, reinforced steel plates turning the ranch house into a fortress. Underground sensors tracked every movement across his property, feeding data to displays throughout his command network. "Motion on the East Ridge," Sarah reported, monitoring multiple screens. "Mercenaries are deploying their heavy weapons exactly. Were you predicted? Of course they are." Michael studied the thermal images. High ground, good fields of fire, textbook positioning. He switched to another feed. They don't realize every perfect position they're taking has been prepared specifically for them. Pete entered the command center, his clothes dusty from setting final preparations. "Charges are set. If they try using those positions for heavy weapons, they're in for a surprise." The ranch's transformation continued methodically. Innocent-looking farm equipment revealed weapon mounts and armored positions. Irrigation ditches became anti-vehicle trenches. Even the cattle played their part, herded strategically to block certain approaches while leaving others temptingly. "Open, sir," Sarah called out. "Intercepted communications between Mendez and El Coyote. They're arguing about tactics." Michael smiled grimly. "Professional military versus cartel assassin. Mendez wants to do this by the book. El Coyote wants blood." He checked another monitor. "Let them argue. Divided command makes for sloppy execution." His satellite phone buzzed. Maria's message was urgent. "Diego's calling in more assets. 3. More helicopters inbound, loaded with equipment. He's stripped his entire northern operation." Perfect. Michael moved to the tactical display. He's committing everything, burning resources and relationships he spent years building. When this fails, he'll have nothing left. A proximity alarm flashed, movement at the edge of their sensor range. Through their thermal imaging, they watched Mendez's men begin their methodical advance. Their formation was perfect, each team covering others' movements. "They're good," Pete admitted, watching the professionals work. "They're predictable," Michael corrected. 20 years hunting cartels teaches you something about mercenary tactics. They're following procedures I helped write. He activated another system, one that had taken years to perfect. Time to show them why that's a mistake. Across the valley, hidden speakers began broadcasting random sounds. Equipment movement, radio chatter, tactical communications. The mercenaries froze, trying to pinpoint genuine threats from false ones. "Psychological warfare?" Sarah asked. "Just the beginning." Michael checked his watch. In about 30 seconds, they're going to try switching to thermal imaging to cut through our deception. Right on cue, the mercenary teams activated their thermal gear. Immediately, dozens of heat signatures appeared across the battlefield. Some real, some carefully crafted decoys generated by heating elements Michael had spent years installing. "They're falling back," Pete reported, regrouping to analyze the situation. Standard procedure when facing unknown capabilities. Michael moved to another station, which means in approximately 45 seconds The valley lit up with infrared illuminators as the mercenaries attempted to cut through the confusion, exactly as Michael had planned. His own sensors, specifically designed to take advantage of this predictable response, captured perfect images of every mercenary. "Position. Target data uploading now," Sarah confirmed. "We've got their exact positions, equipment loadout, everything." Michael's phone buzzed again. This time it was El Coyote himself, breaking operational security to send a direct message. "You've learned some new tricks, Cazador. But you're still just one man. We have an army." "Send response," Michael dictated. "You have an army of professionals following professional protocols. I have 20 years of experience breaking those protocols." He paused. "Add a postscript. How's the shoulder?" That shot in Sonora must have left a mark. The psychological warfare was calculated. El Coyote had taken a bullet during the Sonora operation, a shot that could have been fatal if Michael hadn't deliberately aimed to wound. The reminder would enrage him, make him sloppy. "Multiple vehicles moving," Sarah reported. "They're adopting a new formation. Looks like El Coyote overruled Mendez. They're preparing for a direct assault." "Emotion over tactics," Michael noted with satisfaction. "Diego's professional mercenaries are about to be led by an angry cartel assassin." "Perfect." He turned to his team. "Initiate defense pattern Delta. Let's show them why you don't let anger drive strategy." As his team moved to their positions, Michael took one last look at the tactical display. The mercenaries were arranging themselves exactly as he'd hoped. Professional soldiers following professional protocols, led by an emotional commander, making emotional decisions. 20 years, he muttered, checking his custom rifle. 20 years learning your methods, your protocols, your weaknesses. Time to show you why El Cazador was the one who got away. The sound of distant helicopter rotors cut through the Montana night. But unlike the cartel's noisy transports, these aircraft flew dark and silent, using terrain masking techniques perfected during decades of covert operations. Sierra team touching. "Down!" A familiar voice crackled through Michael's secure radio. "Still flying quiet after all these years, boss?" Michael allowed himself a small smile. "Welcome to the party, Marcus." He switched channels. "Sarah, our guests are arriving. Initiate Protocol Echo. Hidden landing zones lit up with infrared beacons, invisible to the mercenaries' standard night vision, but clear as day to the approaching helicopters. 3 Black Hawks, officially decommissioned years ago, landed with practiced precision. From them emerged 12 figures that moved like shadows. Michael's old DEA tactical team. Each member had fought cartels across 3 continents. Each had personal reasons for coming to this final battle. Marcus Chen, Michael's former second-in-command, reached him first. The Asian operator hadn't aged so much as refined, his movements still liquid smooth. "Nice setup you got here, boss. Very Home Alone meets Black Ops. Team's looking good," Michael observed as the others joined them in the command center. Jack "Ghost" Rodriguez, their communications expert. Lisa Kwan, demolitions specialist. Carl "Doc" Peterson, their medic who'd patched them up through countless operations. "Retired doesn't mean soft," Ghost grinned, setting up additional electronic warfare equipment. "Besides, couldn't let you have all the fun, not after what Diego did in Sonora." The mood sobered. Everyone remembered Sonora, the operation that should have ended the Ramirez cartel, but instead cost them 3 agents. Now they had a chance to finish what they'd started. "Situation update," Michael began, activating the tactical display. "Diego's got 24 professional mercenaries under Xavier Mendez, plus El Coyote's personal team. They're preparing for a major assault, probably within the next 2 hours." Lisa studied the defensive preparations with professional appreciation. "You've been busy. Those charges I'm seeing in the thermal imaging custom work?" "Had 5 years to prepare," Michael confirmed. "Every approach is mined, every safe route trapped. But they're professionals. They'll find ways through. That's why we're here," Marcus said quietly. "Time to show these mercenaries what real professionals look like." "Multiple vehicles moving," Sarah reported suddenly. "They're shifting positions. Looks like... Wait." She adjusted her readings. "Sir, they're pulling back, all units retreating to their command post." Michael moved to the surveillance feeds. The mercenaries were indeed withdrawing, their movement still disciplined but urgent. They spotted our new arrivals. "Diego's not taking chances," Ghost confirmed, monitoring their communications. "He's calling in everything. 3 more helicopters. Inbound, these ones carrying their elite hit teams from Mexico City." "Good." Michael's smile was predatory. "Let him commit more resources. Every asset he moves here is one we can eliminate." The team spread out, each taking charge of different defensive sectors. They moved with the synchronization that came from years of working together, automatically covering each other's blind spots. "Remember Bogotá?" Doc asked as he set up a triage station. "Similar situation, outnumbered, outgunned, but not outmatched," Marcus finished. "Never outmatched." Michael's satellite phone buzzed. Maria's update carried new urgency. "Mike, Diego's gone completely dark. No communications, no movement. Something's wrong." He was already moving to the tactical display when Sarah called out, "Sir, new thermal signatures coming from inside our perimeter." The realization hit hard. While they'd been focused on the obvious mercenary forces, another team had somehow penetrated their outer defenses. El Coyote's specialty, the impossible. "Infiltration. All units fall back to secondary positions," Michael ordered calmly. "They wanted us looking out while they snuck in. Fine, let's show them why that's exactly what we planned for." His old team moved with practiced efficiency, falling into defensive positions they'd never seen but instinctively understood. This wasn't their first time adapting to surprise infiltrators. "Multiple targets," Ghost reported, tracking heat signatures. "Moving like ghosts, using our own sound dampening against us. These aren't regular cartel soldiers." "No," Michael agreed, checking his weapon. "These are the real professionals, the ones Diego keeps for special operations." He switched channels. "Sarah, initiate interior defense protocol. Let's remind them why they used to fear El Cazador's killing grounds." As hidden defenses activated throughout the ranch complex, Michael felt a familiar calm settle over him. Diego had played his hand well, getting an elite team inside their perimeter, but he'd forgotten the most important lesson about hunting. El Cazador, the closer you got, the more dangerous he became. "Watch your crossfire," he instructed his team. "They're counting on chaos and confusion. We're counting on 20 years of experience." He checked his tactical display one final time. "Time to remind them why some legends are best left alone." The firefight erupted without warning. El Coyote's infiltration team struck from multiple positions inside the ranch complex, their attack precise and coordinated. But Michael's veteran team responded with the smooth efficiency of decades of experience, turning what should have been a surprise assault into a deadly dance of shadows. "Contact front," Ghost called out, his suppressed MP5 answering infiltrators trying to breach the command center. The cartel professionals found themselves caught in pre-sighted killing zones, every apparent advantage turning into a trap. But something wasn't right. Michael felt it in his gut as he tracked targets through his thermal scope. These infiltrators were too good, their tactics too familiar. "Marcus," he called over the secure channel, "does any of this feel strange to you?" "Like they know our moves." "Before we make them," Marcus replied, taking down another infiltrator with a non-lethal shot. "Been thinking the same thing." Michael's mind raced, pieces falling into place. The infiltration team wasn't just good. They were using modified versions of his own tactics, countering defensive measures they couldn't have known about. "Ghost," he ordered, "patch me into their comms. Not the encrypted channel, the backup." Frequency. What he heard confirmed his worst fears. The infiltrators were using old DEA tactical codes, ones that had been classified 20 years ago. "Sir!" Sarah's voice carried urgency. "Getting weird data from FBI channels. These authorization codes, they're not cartel." Michael moved to a secure terminal, fingers flying across the keyboard. In moments, he'd accessed files that hadn't seen light in decades, records from his deepest undercover operations. "Oh, God," he breathed, seeing the truth. It was never about Diego. The pieces aligned with terrible clarity. The infiltration, team's impossible knowledge, the familiar tactics, the way they'd bypassed security measures no one should have known about. "Maria," he broadcast on their secure channel, "I need everything you have on Operation Shadowbox 2003. Her response was immediate. "That's still classified, Mike. Even I can't access." "Because it never ended," he cut her off. "The operation never ended." 20 years ago, Michael had led the DEA's most ambitious operation, infiltrating not just the cartels, but corrupt elements within U.S. law enforcement itself. The operation had officially been shut down, listed as a failure. Officially, Ghost. "New encryption key," he ordered. "Protocol 7 Delta 0, old school." The change revealed new channels, voices he hadn't heard in years. The infiltrators weren't cartel professionals. They were deep-cover federal agents, still running the operation he'd started 2 decades ago. "All units, hold fire," he commanded. "We've got friendlies in the mix." "Friendlies?" Marcus questioned. Sharply, "These guys are trying to kill us." "No," Michael corrected. "They're trying to contain us. Diego's cartel isn't the target, we are." He switched channels. "Agent Cooper, I know you're out there. Remember Bogota? The recognition phrase was midnight in Moscow." The firefight died instantly. From the shadows emerged a figure Michael hadn't seen in 20 years. John Cooper, his original handler in Operation Shadowbox. "Hello, Mike," Cooper said quietly. "Wish it hadn't come to this." "The cartel connection," Michael said, pieces still falling into place. "Diego's whole operation. It's a front, isn't it? For something bigger." Cooper nodded grimly. "We let you retire, Mike, let you build this place, but then you started gathering intel, preparing for something. We couldn't risk you exposing the bigger picture." "Which is?" "Operation Shadowbox never ended because the corruption never ended. We've spent 20 years building a network inside every cartel, every agency, controlling the flow, maintaining balance." Michael's blood ran cold. "You're not fighting the cartels, you're managing them." "For the greater good," Cooper insisted. "Better controlled crime than chaos. Better devils we know than ones we don't." Sarah's voice crackled through the comms. "Sir, massive data burst incoming. Maria just sent Everything. Internal files, operation reports, money trails. It's all enough to expose the whole operation, Michael finished, which Maria just sent to every major law enforcement agency and news outlet in the country. Cooper's face hardened. You've just started a war. No, Michael corrected, his rifle never wavering. I just finished one that should have ended 20 years ago. He clicked his radio. All units lighted up. The ranch's floodlights blazed to life, revealing dozens of cameras recording everything. Cooper and his team found themselves surrounded not just by Michael's people, but by the evidence of their own corruption. Did you really think, Michael asked quietly, that I spent 5 years building this place just to fight a cartel? The true war was about to begin, and Michael had just revealed his real target, not Diego's cartel, but the corruption that had festered in the shadows for 20 years. The question was, how deep did the conspiracy go, and who would survive its exposure? The command center crackled with tension as Michael faced his former handler. Cooper's team remained frozen, caught between loyalty to their corrupt operation and the shocking reality of its exposure. You don't understand what you've done, Cooper said, his voice tight with controlled anger. 20 years of careful balance, keeping the cartels in check, preventing all-out war. Letting them operate, Michael countered, profiting from their trade. How many agents died because you were playing both sides, John? Sarah's voice cut through their standoff. Sir, multiple alerts. Mercenary teams are moving again, but something's wrong. They're not following any known protocol. Because they just got new orders, Michael realized. Show me thermal. The display revealed chaos. Mendez's professional mercenaries were engaging El Coyote's teams. Diego's cartel forces were turning on each other. The carefully orchestrated assault had dissolved into a multi-layered conflict. Did you really think Diego was calling the shots? Cooper asked, watching the breakdown. He's just another asset, useful for maintaining the fiction that we're still fighting the cartels instead of managing them. Michael's satellite phone buzzed. Maria's message was urgent. Mike, it's worse than we thought. Operation Shadowbox has people inside every major agency. They're already moving to discredit the evidence, bury the investigation. Ghost, Michael ordered. Broadcast everything. All channels, all frequencies. Let's see them try to bury this much noise. Cooper's laugh was cold. You still don't get it. Diego, El Coyote, the mercenaries, they're all expendable. The real power isn't in the cartels anymore. It's in the system we built to control them. As if to emphasize his point, new alerts flashed across their screens. Federal arrest warrants appearing for Michael and his team. Emergency orders freezing Maria's FBI access. The machine was moving to protect itself. Sir, Sarah's voice carried fresh urgency. New vehicles approaching, different signatures. These aren't cartel. Wetwork teams, Cooper confirmed grimly. Our cleanup crew. They'll eliminate everyone. Diego's people, Mendez's mercenaries, even our own infiltration team. No loose ends. Michael's mind raced. The ranch's defenses were designed for cartel tactics, not Black Ops hit teams. But he'd prepared for betrayal, built contingencies even his old team didn't know about. Marcus, he called over the secure channel. Remember Tehran, the backup plan we never had to use, the one that would have gotten us all killed. Marcus replied, Yeah, I remember. Time to use it. Understanding flowed through his veteran team. Tehran had been their closest call, saved only by Michael's most insane contingency plan, using their own attackers' protocols against them. You're trapped, Mike, Cooper stated flatly. Even if you survive the cleanup cruise, the evidence is already being buried. By morning, Operation Shadowbox will be just another classified file, and you'll be a rogue agent who snapped under pressure. Michael smiled coldly. You forgot something, John. Something important about El Cazador. And what's that? I never hunt without backup prey. He activated one final system, one he'd hoped never to use. Maria, execute Protocol Omega. The effect was immediate. every screen in the command center lit up with new data, not just evidence of Operation Shadowbox, but 20 years of Michael's own parallel investigation, every corrupt agent, every secret account, every hidden connection exposed simultaneously across every law enforcement database in the country. You didn't just build this place to fight cartels, Cooper realized, his face draining of color. You built it to expose us, all of us. 5 years of preparation, Michael confirmed. Every defense, every protocol, every trap. It was never about Diego. It was about forcing you to commit your resources, expose your network. Sarah's voice held a note of awe. Sir, it's working. Federal agencies are moving independently outside Shadowbox control. Too many people have the evidence. Now they can't stop it. Cooper's hand moved toward his weapon, but Michael was faster. The former handler found himself staring down the barrel of El Cazador's rifle. The cleanup crews will still come, Cooper warned. Good, Michael replied, because now they'll find something they didn't expect. Evidence of their own operations. Broadcast live to every agency not compromised by Shadowbox. You're not just fighting me anymore, John. You're fighting the very system you tried to corrupt. The ranch's defenses hummed to life, preparing for the real battle. Michael Torres hadn't spent 20 years hunting cartels just to let corruption win. He'd spent it preparing for this moment, when the true predators would finally be exposed. The war was about to enter its final phase, and this time, the hunters were about to become the hunted. Thunder Valley Ranch transformed into a war zone as Michael's team prepared for the coming storm. Cooper and his infiltration team were secured in the reinforced cellar, while outside, the remains of Diego's cartel forces and Mendez's mercenaries fought a chaotic battle against each other. Cleanup crews 10 minutes out, Sarah reported, monitoring multiple radar signatures. 4 helicopters, 6 ground vehicles. These aren't standard operators. Thermal signatures suggest advanced stealth gear. Ghost? Status on the broadcast? Michael asked, checking his specialized ammunition. Evidence is spreading faster than they can contain it. FBI field officers are launching independent investigations. CIA Internal Affairs is moving. Even Interpol is getting involved. Michael moved to the tactical display where red dots showed the approaching cleanup teams. These would be different from the cartel forces or even Cooper's infiltrators. These were the true elite. Operators chosen specifically for erasing evidence and eliminating witnesses. Marcus, take positions here and here. He indicated key defensive points. They'll expect us to fortify the obvious approaches. Instead, we channel them into killing zones they won't see until it's too late. Like Kandahar? Marcus asked, studying. The positions. Exactly. Let them think they're boxing us in while we're actually boxing them in, Marcus finished, understanding dawning. Using their own containment protocols against them. Lisa checked her demolition setup. Charges are set for maximum disruption. The moment they commit to an approach, we can reshape the entire battlefield. Sir, Sarah's voice cut through their planning. New data from Maria. The cleanup teams. They're led by someone we know. Colonel Richards. The name hit like a physical blow. Colonel James Richards, the man who'd recruited Michael into the DEA 20 years ago. The mentor who'd taught him everything about hunting cartels. Should have known, Michael muttered. He was always at the center of Shadowbox. I just never wanted to see it. 2-minute warning, Ghost reported. They're initiating electronic warfare protocols, trying to jam our communications. Let them, Michael replied. Switch to the backup mesh network. Everything else is a decoy anyway. The team moved with practiced efficiency, each member knowing their role in what was about to become the most important battle of their careers. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about exposing 2 decades of corruption that had poisoned federal law enforcement. Doc, status on our insurance policy? Michael asked. Cooper and his team are secure. Medical monitoring shows they're all stable. ready to testify when this is over. Michael's satellite phone buzzed one final time. Maria's last message before communications would be compromised. "Mike, backup is coming. Real federal response teams, not compromised by Shadowbox. But they're at least an hour out. You have to hold until then." "1 hour," Michael announced to his team. "We hold for 1 hour, and 20 years of corruption comes crashing down." He checked his watch. "Ghost, activate the ranch's final defensive protocols. Time to show them why El Cazador was the best at what he did. Hidden weapons positions powered up. Automated defense systems came online. Every inch of Thunder Valley Ranch, built over 5 years for exactly this moment, prepared for war. 30 seconds, Sarah called out. "Wait, new thermal signatures. They're deploying something different, some kind of advanced combat drones." "Richards always was an innovator," Michael said grimly. "Lisa, initiate electromagnetic defenses. Let's see how their drones handle a little localized EMP." The first shots would come any second. Michael could feel it, the calm before the storm. Richards would follow the exact protocols he'd taught Michael years ago, which meant incoming. Multiple explosions rocked the perimeter as the cleanup teams launched their opening salvo. But Michael was already moving, his team responding with the synchronization that came from decades of operations together. "All units execute defense pattern Omega," he ordered calmly. "Remember, they think they're here to erase evidence. They don't realize they're about to become evidence." The night lit up with gunfire and explosions as the final battle began. Somewhere out there, Colonel Richards was orchestrating a precision assault designed to eliminate everyone who knew about Operation Shadowbox. But El Cazador had spent 20 years learning how to hunt the most dangerous prey of all, corrupt operators who thought they were above the law. Now it was time to show them why some predators should never be backed into a corner. The hour of reckoning had arrived, and Thunder Valley Ranch was about to become the flashpoint for the biggest exposed conspiracy in federal law enforcement history. The cleanup team's first assault hit like a thunderstorm. Advanced combat drones swept in under cover of precision mortar fire, while stealth-equipped operators moved through the chaos. But Michael had spent 20 years learning from the very best, Colonel Richards himself, and 5 years preparing for exactly this scenario. "EMP defenses now," he ordered. Localized electromagnetic pulses rippled across the battlefield. The million-dollar drones dropped from the sky like dead birds. But Richards had anticipated this. It was his own tactic, after all. "Multiple breaches," Sarah called out. "They're using the drone attack as cover for ground teams. 4 entry points." "Just like Richards taught me," Michael muttered. "Ghost, activate sonic defenses, grid pattern delta." Hidden speakers unleashed carefully calibrated sound waves, disrupting the attacker's sophisticated communications equipment. Michael had learned this trick during an operation in Moscow. The exact frequencies that could pierce military-grade radio encryption. "Sir!" Pete's voice crackled through their backup comms. "They're using some kind of advanced thermal masking. Can barely track them." "Switch to subsonic sensors," Michael commanded. "Richards helped develop their stealth tech, but he doesn't know about the counters I've been developing for 5 years. The battlefield transformed into a deadly chess match. Every move the cleanup teams made was met with a prepared countermeasure. Yet Michael could feel Richards' tactical genius behind each assault, probing, testing, looking for weaknesses. "Contact front," Marcus called out. "These guys are different." "Moving like ghosts." "Delta Force," Michael identified, watching their movement patterns. "Richard's personal wetwork team, the best of the best." The Delta operators moved with terrifying efficiency, using techniques Michael had never seen before. But Thunder Valley Ranch had been built to counter even unknown threats. "Lisa, initiate ground denial protocols," he ordered. "Sectors 3 through 7. Carefully hidden charges detonated, not to kill, but to reshape the battlefield itself. Terrain that the Delta team had carefully reconnoitered suddenly changed, forcing them into preset killing zones. "They're adapting," Sarah warned. "New formation. Wait, multiple thermal blooms. They're burning the evidence." Michael's blood ran cold. The cleanup teams weren't just trying to eliminate witnesses, they were systematically destroying every piece of physical evidence about Operation Shadowbox. Ghost. Status on the broadcast? They're trying to shut us down, but the data's spreading too fast. Every agency not compromised by Shadowbox is getting copies. Even foreign intelligence services are. Incoming. A massive explosion rocked the command center. Through the smoke, Michael glimpsed figures moving with deadly grace. Richard's elite. Team had breached their outer defenses. "Fall back to position Echo," Michael ordered calmly. "Let them think they've got us running." His team executed a fighting retreat, drawing the attackers deeper into the ranch complex. Every step had been planned, every fallback position prepared, but these operators were the best in the world, and they learned fast. "Sir," Sarah's voice was tight with tension, "Colonel Richards is on the field. Thermal just picked him up directing operations from their command post." Michael checked his watch. 40 minutes until legitimate federal response teams arrived. 40 minutes to hold out against the most elite cleanup crew in the intelligence community. "All units, prepare for maximum protocol," he commanded. "Richards thinks he taught me everything I know. Time to show him what 20 years of hunting cartels really taught me." The night was about to become a legend in special operations circles. The night El Cazador turned a simple ranch into a killing ground that would humble even the most elite operators in the world. And somewhere in the darkness, Colonel Richards was about to learn why you should never hunt a hunter in his own territory. Thunder Valley Ranch burned. Strategic fires set by Richards' cleanup team illuminated the battlefield, casting twisted shadows across ground that had become a graveyard for advanced technology. Downed drones, disabled vehicles, and the scattered remnants of elite tactical gear marked where state-of-the-art equipment had met Michael's prepared defenses. 20 minutes, Sarah reported from their fallback command post. "Federal response teams are pushing hard, but Richard's people are delaying them." Michael watched through his thermal scope as more Delta operators probed his defenses. They moved, like ghosts, using techniques he'd never seen before. But they were still men, and men left traces. "Marcus, they're setting up for another breach, past the North Ridge." "Already on it," Marcus replied. Precision shots rang out, forcing the Delta team to abandon their position. But these were the best operators in the world. They adapted instantly, using the retreat to mask their real advance. "Multiple contacts," Ghost called out. "They're coming through the... Wait, this is different. Pattern doesn't match." Michael saw it too. The cleanup team's movements had changed. No more probing attacks or careful advances. This was something else. They're not trying to breach anymore, he realized. This is a herding operation. Richards is... The explosion caught them by surprise, not from the attackers, but from inside their own perimeter. Hidden charges they hadn't planted, triggered by someone who knew their protocols intimately. "Fall back," Michael ordered. "It's a trap within a trap." His team reacted instantly, but the damage was done. Richards had predicted their fallback. Roots used their own tactics against them. The Delta operators rushed in with mechanical precision, forcing Michael's team to split up. "Sir!" Sarah's voice crackled through failing comms. "Colonel Richards is broadcasting on our old DEA frequency." The voice that came through was exactly as Michael remembered it. Calm, professional, almost paternal. "Still using the same tricks. Mike, the ones I taught you." "Not all of them," Michael replied, signaling his team to hold position. "You taught me to hunt cartels. I learned how to hunt corrupt operators on my own." "Corrupt?" Richard sounded genuinely disappointed. "We brought order to chaos, controlled the uncontrollable. Everything I did was to make the system work better, by becoming what we fought against, by understanding that perfect justice is a fantasy. Perfect control, though. Another explosion rocked their position. That's achievable. Michael's mind raced. Richards wasn't just attacking, he was deconstructing their defenses systematically, using knowledge of Michael's tactics against him. Which meant, Ghost, switch to frequency Delta 7. Sarah, activate the subsonic charges. Everyone else, protocol Omega. Omega? Marcus questioned sharply. That'll bring down half the ranch. Exactly. Understanding flowed through the team. Michael wasn't trying to protect his position anymore. He was using Richard's own methodical approach against him. The results were devastating. As the cleanup teams moved in for what they thought was the kill, carefully hidden charges collapsed key structures. The very terrain transformed, channeling the attackers into pre-sighted zones. You remember Tehran, Colonel? Michael broadcast. The op, where you taught me about controlling the battlefield? Richard's response was instant, by reshaping it to your advantage. Yes, I remember. You taught me well. Maybe too well. The true trap revealed itself. While Richard's elite operators had been methodically dismantling Michael's obvious defenses, they'd been missing the bigger picture. The entire ranch was one giant kill zone, designed not just to fight cartel forces, but to neutralize elite. Tactical teams. Checkmate in 3 moves, Michael announced, triggering the final sequence. The battlefield transformed. Hidden defensive positions appeared where there should have been none. Automated systems engaged from impossible angles. Richard's perfect tactical formation suddenly became a perfect trap. Sir! Sarah's voice held both awe and urgency. Colonel Richards is moving. He's exposed. Michael saw it too. His former mentor had abandoned his command post, leading his remaining operators in a final, desperate assault. It was exactly what Michael had been waiting for. All units, hold fire, he ordered, stepping out into the open. This ends where it began, teacher versus student. Richards emerged from the smoke like a ghost, his movement still deadly smooth, despite his age. You really want to do this, Mike? After everything I taught you? You taught me to hunt monsters, Michael replied, his rifle steady. Never thought I'd have to use those lessons against you. The 2 men faced each other across the burning battlefield, each recognizing the lethal skill in the other. But while Richards had spent 20 years building a system of control, Michael had spent those same years learning how to tear such. Systems down, last chance, Colonel. Surrender to legitimate federal authority. Let Operation Shadowbox die. Richard's laugh was cold. You still don't understand. Shadowbox isn't just an operation. It's the future. Perfect control through managed chaos. No, Michael corrected. It's the past. Your past. My past. Time to let it end. The final confrontation happened in heartbeats. Richards was fast. Impossibly fast for his age. But Michael had spent 20 years preparing for this moment, learning from every cartel assassin and professional killer he'd encountered. Their exchange was brief, brutal, and decisive. When it ended, Colonel Richards lay disarmed and defeated, his elite cleanup team neutralized by the very tactics he'd taught their target. Federal response teams, 5 minutes out, Sarah reported, as Michael's team secured the survivors. Michael stood over his former mentor, seeing not the legendary operator who'd trained him, but a man who'd lost his way in pursuit of control. You taught me everything I knew, he told Richards. But you forgot the most important lesson of all, which is, the best hunter isn't the one with the most weapons or the perfect plan. Michael turned away as legitimate federal agents finally breached the valley's perimeter. It's the one who never loses sight of what he's really fighting for. Dawn broke over Thunder Valley Ranch, revealing the full scope of the night's battle. Michael Torres had spent 20 years building a reputation hunting cartels, but his greatest hunt had been for the corruption within the system itself. El Cazador's final hunt was over, and the truth he'd fought so long to expose would finally see the light of day. The sun climbed over Thunder Valley Ranch, illuminating a landscape transformed by battle. Federal agents swarmed the property, documenting evidence of both the night's conflict and 20 years of corruption. Michael stood on his porch, shadow, at his side, watching as Colonel Richards and the surviving cleanup team members were led away in chains. Maria approached, her FBI tactical gear dusty from the fight. "It's over, Mike. Operation Shadowbox is completely exposed. Cooper's already talking, naming names. The whole corrupt network is coming down." And Diego? Found him trying to flee the country. The cartel connection gave us everything we needed to dismantle his entire organization. She paused. Though that was never really the point, was it? Michael shook his head, watching as his team helped process the scene. Marcus coordinating with federal tactical units. Ghost downloading final evidence from their systems. Sarah ensuring every detail was properly documented. 5 years, he said quietly. 5 years building this place, preparing for this moment, using everything I learned hunting cartels to set a trap for the real predators. The ones hiding behind. Badges, Maria finished. The corruption that let cartels operate freely as long as the right people got paid. Local news helicopters circled overhead, documenting the aftermath of what would become one of the biggest federal corruption scandals in history. But Michael's attention was on his land, his home. The place he'd built not just as a fortress, but as a symbol of justice. Pete approached, looking exhausted but satisfied. "Ranch took some damage, sir, but the foundations are solid. We can rebuild." "We will," Michael agreed. "But this time, just as a ranch. No more hidden arsenals or command centers." "Sure about that?" Maria asked. "You're a hero now. FBI's already talking about promotions, task force leadership." "I'm done hunting," Michael cut her off gently. 20 years chasing cartels, 5 years planning this operation. Time to just be a rancher. His old team gathered around him, each understanding. They'd all seen too much, fought too long. The victory they'd achieved was enough. Though, Marcus added with a slight smile, might be good to keep some of the security upgrades. Just in case. Michael looked out over his land as federal agents continued their work. Thunder Valley Ranch would heal, its scars becoming part of its story. The corrupt system he'd fought so long to expose was crumbling, and a new generation of honest agents would rise to take its place. El Cazador, Maria mused. The hunter. Think the cartels will ever stop telling stories about you? Michael watched the sun rise higher, thinking of all the battles, all the sacrifices that had led to this moment. "Let them tell stories," he said finally, "as long as they remember the moral." "Which is," he smiled, scratching shadow behind the ears, "sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one hunting corruption itself." Thunder Valley Ranch would return to what it was always meant to be, a place of peace, hard work, and honest living. But its legend would live on, a reminder that justice comes not just from the system, but from those willing to stand against corruption wherever it hides. The hunter had made his final kill, and it was time to let the shadows fade in the light of a new dawn.